Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
Welcome to Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity, where Randy, Andre, and I, Bryan Hornung, talk about all things cybersecurity. I want to welcome to the show and bring in Randy, Bryan, Reginald Andre. What's up, guys? How are you today?
Man, is this like deja vu? I feel like we saw each other earlier this week.
We did.
We're busy.
So
we're busy, so we have to move it around and stuff. But we're dedicated though. We always bring a show every week, right? So
I've got exciting news.
And then we're up against Labor Day, so we got a few scheduling changes where we're not going to be running on Monday.
Right.
But for the most part, we run Mondays around noon time Eastern, and we bring you the goods. But sometimes we got to switch it up, so that's why you got to subscribe on the YouTubes and everywhere else. Get notified when we go live, and you'll never miss a beat. So, all right, guys, ready to get into it? Because we got some stuff today, right? Let's see, we got Randy opening with a device giant who got knocked offline. That's a big one. We're going to talk about that. Andre, you're going to cover the 171,000 nonprofits Microsoft left with nothing. That's an interesting conversation to have, because that's something I talk about with business owners all the time who are just completely unaware of what's going on in that realm. I'm going to close this out with a ransomware hit on a federal agency that was contained by design. So we're going to move into Mr. Randy first, who comes to the show with the biggest story of the week, probably of the month, of the year, I don't know. But this is a medical device maker, one of the biggest on the planet, detected a cyber attack that took down the systems it uses to process and ship orders around the world. They're saying the factories were fine, but hospitals still couldn't get things like pacemakers and stents. So Randy, walk us through what's going on here.
Right. So this group, Boston Scientific, gigantic firm, worldwide, I believe I read they're in like 127 different countries. So they've got stuff all over the world, manufacturing all over the world, employees all over the world. So they were hit. This is crazy. They detected the breach. They detected it on the 25th. So like this week, right? They did their SEC filing the very next morning. So on the 26th. So literally, this is a brand new story. 48 hours ago, we actually debated during the week whether or not to talk about this once we found out about it, because it's so new and there's not a lot of information, but there are some things I know. Detected on Tuesday, reported it the next week. Like I said, it's global. This company makes pacemakers, defib devices, stents, implants. Thousands of workers, we do know this, thousands of workers were sent home from their Cork, Ireland plants. So that may be the epicenter. We'll let you know as we find out more. The rest of the work week has been canceled. They're doing a recovery in phases. So we know that this has been operational disruption. We know that it is, they're not shipping anything right now. We know that it's affected worldwide. What we don't know right now, though, we don't know who the attacker was. Was it ransomware, data theft, patient data exposure? We don't know that yet. And their notice to the SEC didn't include that. So a couple things, though, that really struck out with this for me. So these devices that this company manufactures are highly regulated. Like in the USA, they're highly regulated by the FDA. So here's the thing. So they're down. They had a disruption, and it's different than, you know, oh, we had a little breach, we dealt with it, we restored some backups or whatever. We're talking, it looks like this hit manufacturing. And the manufacturer, let's just run through one product. The manufacturer manufactures pacemakers. So we're talking an electronic device that's going to be put inside of somebody's body to keep them alive. So the recovery process here is not going to be, oh, let's just, you know, restore some backups or whatever. They're going to have to certify that the bad guys got into or didn't get into their software, didn't get into the firmware on the manufacturing devices, and didn't somehow replicate itself into the firmware of the devices like the pacemakers and other things that they make, because like I said, they're FDA certified devices. So here's a case of a business that can't just turn things back on. It seems like it kind of seems, and I want to hear y'all's opinion, kind of seems like they have their crap together from a cybersecurity standpoint. They were able to do a filing. It was not a complete filing. Like it you know, it satisfied the law, but I'm sure they'll come back with more. But they were able to do a filing the next day. They put procedures into place right away. They brought in an outside firm right away. You know, it wasn't a week of, you know, trying to figure out what was going on or whatever. But that said, they're not going to be able to just turn the lights back on like tomorrow. And as far as how does that relate to small businesses in America? So thinking about this, like I know all three of our companies, we serve manufacturing firms. What would happen if your manufacturing line was shut down for 3 weeks because of an outage? That would be brutal. Most companies couldn't survive that. They don't have the cash on hand to survive that. So it's very, very important that we're doing our due diligence on this side of the breach and not trying to start it up after the breach. And for these guys in particular, we don't know how long it's going to take for them to be able to certify the bad guys didn't get into everywhere. So this will be something to really keep our eyes on over the next few weeks, and would love to hear y'all's input on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a perfect example where, you know, no company could ever guarantee a cyber attack. This is a $20 billion company. And as you pointed out of how fast they put out the notice, either by law or because they just wanted to let people know and let the public know and their investors know. But, you know, I'm sure they have the good firewalls and endpoints protections and stuff like that. But this now talks more about, you know, how fast can you detect and how fast can and what like critical business systems can still operate and how fast can you restore. So we're not seeing anything yet as far as like, you know, hospitals saying, oh my gosh, we can't get this little piece or whatever like that. I know it's only been a couple of days, and hopefully they already had enough inventory. The hospitals, that is, had enough inventory where they can kind of just wait a few more days for Boston Scientific to get their things back up. But I think, again, the cyber resilience is a topic that is typically not talked in the boardroom. It's more about what's the budget we're going to do, what protections are we going to do, but we got to reverse that and say, hey, if a $20 billion company can get hacked, well, you know, we can get hacked, and what is our plan after with that worst case scenario?
I am so surprised you guys did not mention the word ShinyHunters at all yet.
Oh, it's ShinyHunters.
So the group claiming this one, guys, is ShinyHunters, and they've been hitting the medical device sector all year. We talked about it the last time they attacked somebody. We said like they are clearly going after medical device manufacturers, anyone in medical facilities, medical devices. You got to watch out for these guys because they have something. And what that something is a playbook to get into your businesses and extort you. So they hit Medtronic the last time we talked about them for about 9 million records, 7.1 million from Baxter. They hit Abbott Laboratories and Exact Sciences in July. Those were the most recent ones. So if someone or ShinyHunters is systematically targeting your industry, if you're a CEO who's like, it hasn't happened to us yet, well, it just means they haven't reached out yet. I mean, they're coming, and they're coming hard, and they're looking for victims, probably 24/7 with AI bots and agents and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I didn't mention that. So I had my suspicions there, but I didn't mention that because I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah,
but
yeah, they're claiming it. It's
okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah, so I mean, good luck against this group, because restoring systems here with this group is going to solve the downtime problem, but it doesn't solve anything for the data that this group already has. Like, that's the problem that Boston Scientific finds themselves in with this issue, which is probably why they filed the way that they did, Randy, what you were asking me in the green room. So, what's the impact on the workers? I think they sent a bunch of people home, I think in the thousands.
Yep. Yeah, like the whole factory in Cork Island.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that it impacted that much, right?
Yep.
So, and those areas, we're starting to see a lot of cyber criminal activity in that geographic area in terms of critical infrastructure, things like that. So, there's probably something there where these groups know that Great Britain, Ireland, they're not taking securing critical infrastructure and healthcare as seriously as maybe some U.S. companies are. So they're just going after what they view as a softer target. So the global companies out there that operate in all these different countries, just make sure you're doing it right across the board in every country, right? Because we are clearly seeing a pattern here with the Great Britain area getting hit by this group and being in the medical field.
Yep.
Or critical infrastructure, because they're hitting power plants too, and water plants. So it's very interesting what's happening out there right now. So good stuff, Randy. I know you're going to keep us posted on this stuff because it's new. There's not a lot out. I think it literally hit the wire yesterday or maybe Wednesday afternoon. I don't remember when I saw that at first, but this is fresh stuff hitting the wire. So we'll keep you posted. So
yeah, Andre found it. I think he found it on you found it like Tuesday, right, Andre?
Something like that. Yep, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Man. Way to go, Andre the sleuth.
So that's an outsider forcing your data offline, right? But your data can also vanish because, a vendor changed a plan or something happened and it's just kind of left out there, right? Or something pivoted and people weren't aware of it, so bad things happen. So in this situation, Andre's bringing to us, which is important, there's no hacker required here, but Andre, tell us what Microsoft just did to 171,000 nonprofits.
Yeah, so what Microsoft did, or what they maybe just didn't do operationally well and educate its customers. So for many years, Microsoft has provided a special SKU or special nonprofit discount for nonprofits. And I know, for example, my wife, who has a nonprofit, for a long time, she was using that plan, where I believe it was like if you had 10 or less employees or 10 or less email addresses and Microsoft Office suites, it would essentially be free as part of Microsoft wanting to give back. Well, they did give notice, and I guess that's going to be kind of like the asterisk in all of this, is how well did they provide the notification? And this article was basically interviewing a few people and giving their perspective of how it's impacted them, because these, the story talks about a CEO, and he's just trying to change, for the better good of the community. He doesn't have necessarily an IT person. Someone set up his emails, and it's been kind of a set it and forget it since then. And essentially one day he, wakes up and his emails are not working. His OneDrive the files are empty. And as they start to research it, they realize that Microsoft had provided notice that, hey, we're going to be, getting rid of this nonprofit plan, and we need you to now move over to here, and you got to start paying a little as well. So the reason I wanted to bring this story out is because according to third-party reports, they're claiming that 171,000 nonprofit organizations lost information from their OneDrive, their SharePoint, their emails, and so forth like that. And I kind of just wanted to highlight how it's so important that we all really realize that, just because that something is in the cloud, don't let it give you that confidence that, oh, it's in the cloud, it's being backed up, it's with Microsoft. Because, we always say, what if, your Microsoft tenant gets hacked? What if Microsoft has an outage? Or in this case, what if you missed the email and now your data was deleted? So, again, nonprofits, they're working with tight budgets, deadlines, and so forth like that. And now we have approximately 171,000 organizations that possibly don't have backups, and now they're having to start from scratch. And they don't have a budget to pay for overtime and, get all these employees, caught up and so forth like that. So please make sure that if you're using Google, Microsoft, you're using a third-party software to capture that data and just back it up somewhere else. It's not expensive.
Yeah, that's been hitting all over, man. Because getting the free 10 licenses, there's a lot of nonprofits out there that are a handful of people. Maybe they're just a single founder, and that free thing allowed them to get quite a bit of stuff. But yeah, if the license goes away, the data that's there goes away as well. I would say, though, to nonprofits, you are still able to get business 365 business basic for up to 300 licenses. They're still doing that for free. And then you can also get, I think it's $5 or $6 to get business premium per month. So there's a way out. But yeah, also tenants that are just left there for a while with no licensing, data gets deleted as well. So you can't just like say, oh, I'm going to keep a tenant out there and, keep some data on it with no licensing. The licensing will eventually the data will eventually go away. I don't know what their actual timeline is on that, but yeah, this has been kind of a apocalypse of sorts over the last 6 months as these have all kicked in. Because also, if you were on like a 1-year agreement, so we had some of our nonprofits were on month to month, and right away, back when Microsoft first did this, they had to get on licenses, paid licenses. They could no longer use the 10 free ones. But then others that were on like a year commitment were able to use free licensing up until very recently. But I think it's just all gone now. And that may be why some people are now seeing the pain, because maybe they had a 1-year, commitment on it or something. But anyway.
Well, there goes Tech Soup. So,
oh yeah,
for you, as I love to pull up my Seinfeld guy here.
Yeah, that's classic.
Yeah, so you tech guys will get the inside joke there. But yeah, it sucks. It sucks from a lot of different levels, right? It sucks when you read that a nonprofit leader had a renewal good through October of 2026, and his data is still deleted anyway. So like active subscriptions do not even guarantee that your files survive a vendor's business decision, right? And this is stuff that us three know along the way, because quite frankly, we've learned the hard way, right? We've been in a situation where a vendor probably made a decision that impacted our clients, our data in some way, and it's kind of like, wow, you realize at that point like what the agreement really is, like. And I remember when everybody started moving to M365 and in the early days, and all the buzz around like, hey, Microsoft was very clear when they rolled this out that like there's a shared responsibility model or matrix here. And our job is to just make sure that service is up and running for you. Anything you put in there, that's your responsibility. Don't call us when your data is gone, right? If you can connect your Outlook to M365, but you have no email in your mailbox, that's not our problem, right? So, and a lot of people today don't understand that. We run into businesses all the time, guys, where it's like, hey, what are you using? Oh, we're using Google Workspace, or we're using M365. Either one, it's the same story. You need to have those backed up through a third party, because those organizations are only providing you the email service. They're not providing you the backup of the data inside of your mailboxes, inside your Google Drive, inside your SharePoint, inside your OneDrive. It's all up to you and your business to make sure that that stuff is backed up.
Yep.
Yep. Good stuff.
Well,
Andre.
and
I mean, go ahead.
well, just real quick with like Google, I've just read about this before. Like they have stuff on a RAID that has the ability to lose, you know, at least one drive, probably multiple drives before it crashes. But like all your data in Google is sitting out there on what a RAID is. It's basically a bunch of disks, and they're organized in such a way that your data is kind of distributed across more than one place. So if one of them dies, they can just put in a new drive and it comes back. But at the end of the day, they're not backing it up. They're just trying to do redundancy on the disks. So your data, you could just wake up one day and your data could just disappear out of Google, right? Because something on their side broke. So you're right. We want to make sure we're bringing in some kind of data backup. So when if there ever is a failure, we still have a way back. And in their terms of service, they all say, as far as I know, they all say that you need to have external backups that aren't related to them, in case this stuff goes south. So what were you going to ask?
I wasn't going to ask anything. I was just commending Andre on bringing something to the table that's not necessarily a cyber attack, but I'm sure businesses probably have dealt with this. I would even venture to say that businesses probably dealt with something like this with some cloud vendor, right? That's the important takeaway here. This can happen with any cloud vendor that you have. It's not just Microsoft. It's not just Google. If you're in Salesforce, your CRM, anything that you're putting in the cloud, more than likely that agreement that you sign, unless there's some kind of business continuity or backup attached to that agreement, most of these agreements and most of these SaaS people, they don't want the liability of your data. They just want the liability of their app being available for you to use. Like when you layer in like, hey, we're responsible for your data too, that increase that SaaS vendor's cost tremendously. So it's much cheaper for them to deliver a service where their liability is only limited to whether that service is available to you or not. So really important stuff there.
And don't forget your QuickBooks Online, which most people have now.
So, sir, yeah, anything that's in the cloud, like QuickBooks, Xero, Oracle. I mean, come on. I mean, like Oracle, I would be more concerned about Oracle and what mid-market companies are doing there with the stuff that they have. You know, because like, look, Oracle's playing in the AI game. You know, there's might be some risk there with their business and what they do and how they do things moving forward, or whether they stay in business. You have to be looking at that stuff if you're putting your data in the Oracle cloud. You have to be aware of these companies' health, right? I remember living through the heyday of like, or call it the heyday. I think it's even still happening, but when everybody decided like, oh, I'm going to create my own data center, right? I'm going to co-locate. I'm going to do this or that, right? So you're gonna trust some guy who maybe bundled together 5 servers in a data center that he's going to do things securely and back things up and do things with compliance. You know, when you layer in all that stuff and you do it the right way, you see why, you know, the small guy kind of can't compete with the Amazons and the Googles of the world when they can scale things like security and compliance into their data center that small people just can't compete with, right? We're going to see the same kind of thing play out when it comes to AI, right? There's just going to be certain things that people are going to try to run their own AIs out of their own offices. There's going to be people out there that run out there and go, oh, don't run the LLMs, run your own model in your own office. It's secure, it's safer. Okay, if you think so, it's just not, you're still running it in the cloud. It's your
Wait.
own cloud and not OpenAI's or Anthropic's.
Uh,
And you still have to do all the security, all the model training that they're putting billions of dollars into as we speak. So, yeah, I mean, guys, how many people used to run their own mail servers and they don't run their own mail servers anymore?
When I went to school, I learned how to do a mail server.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's so funny because the last 15 years we've been teaching people what cloud means, and not what cloud means in general, but basically how cloud is taking your server and just putting in someone else out of your closet and putting in someone else's closet. And you're right. Now we're talking about bringing it back to our closet, saying it's more secure or whatever. And you're right. That opens up a whole nother can of worms. So it is a very large discussion that needs to be had if a business is considering it. And there are true use cases for it. Some businesses have compliance. They've got to keep all data on-prem, or they may have leadership that's too freaked out about putting any data off site or whatever. But yeah, man, opens up a whole nother can of worms, and you're not just safe because you're doing it. So
that's why I believe that the IT consultants, MSPs, like the advantage that MSPs have over every other business out there when it comes to this AI stuff is, in our own little bubble, we've already learned all these mistakes about tools and how you implement them, how you buy them, tool bloat. Like, that's all stuff that now is going to permeate out into the rest of the business world, that we have that expertise and knowledge. I'm sure there's some other industries out there where it's similar. I would think like CRM companies, things like that, where they've seen similar stuff. But there's going to be such a problem with companies losing money and not getting AI right out of the gate because they just buy too many tools, buy the wrong tools, right? All the things that we saw with MSPs doing as they grew up, making those same mistakes. I think you're just going to see the same pattern with regular business as it comes to AI and AI tools, right? So, like I said, like, we knew MSPs had decided, I'm going to start up my own cloud, my own colo server. Okay. How many of those guys are still actually flourishing today? None.
Yeah.
Right? They made money in the beginning, and sure, they figured out something, and they convinced some people that, like, hey, Amazon's bad, Google's bad, move over here. And then the scale came with Amazon and Microsoft and Google, and it just became too cheap to run your email out of there, out of M365 or Google, versus what it took to do it on your own if you were going to do it the right way. Right? And AI is going to play out the same way. People are going to buy AI tools and be like, oh, I figured it out, it's cheap, but then it's not secure, or it's causing a big problem, and now you have to go back to the drawing board and redesign it, right? We've seen all that play out multiple times in our industry over 20 years. Thoughts? No?
you're right on.
Yeah. So,
And
go ahead.
no, it's okay.
You can think out loud. It's okay.
No, I know. It's only a podcast. No, I was gonna say I was gonna say, but I backtrack. Just like how we did the cloud servers, will that somehow become with AI, where people are going to be like, let me host it for you, or let me create my own where it's in your environment, but then it's gonna just turn around again.
All coming. That's all.
Oh,
coming.
okay.
I mean, I think that's all coming. I think there's going to be people out there peddling their own AI model, like it's safer and more secure, and we filter it this way or that way. We still use the large language models, but the data never leaves our box, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah,
Okay.
that kind of stuff. You're already starting to see it with some guys, right? It's going to be a long road to hoe for them in the next couple of years, I think, because this
Yeah.
stuff's just going to get better, cheaper, and faster, and they're just going to have to keep keeping up with that. So, all right, guys, let's move it on. Going at a pretty good clip here. And then I want to talk about this ATF thing, because I always love when our government, can't figure it out. And this one's a big one, in my opinion, because Killing Ransomware gang hit a computer system holding information about targets of its investigations. And this is the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And the DOJ called it a major incident, yet the agency kept running normally because of one decision made long before this attack. So the system that got hit was standalone. So it deliberately walled off from the ATF's main network, guys. And its eForm system, the breach hit one box instead of the whole agency. So that right there should be like, hey, okay, sounds like they were doing things right. What actually happened here? So the interesting thing is the data on that system was information about investigation targets, right? So that's probably the most sensitive thing that this organization holds, because these are active investigations against people who are, dealing or transporting alcohol, tobacco, firearms in an illegal manner, right? So, these are obviously, you want to isolate a system like this, right? And I don't even know when this system was created, but if it was something that was created many years ago, probably chock full of vulnerabilities and stuff like that, right? So so we don't have any direct information from the ATF about when it happened, how, or whether the data actually left. But Killen claimed this happened, but posted no data samples, which usually points to a negotiation, or they didn't get everything, or they already got paid. We can discuss that a little bit, guys, once I wrap up here, whether we think that our government paid them off so they didn't have a massive black eye. But this is the most active ransomware group who attacks government entities, and they're the most active one in 2026 as well. Their victim count is actually, this is Killing Ransomware Group, if you didn't catch that, their active count is up by 443%, guys. I love when those numbers go above 100%. But and 2,200 organizations, guys, on their leak site, and North American companies and organizations account for about 1,100 of those 2,200. So very interesting stuff happening with the Killing Ransomware Group and their activity, how hard they're hitting companies. But I want to dive into this. This is the DOJ, right? ATF is the DOJ. They fall under them. And here we are seeing the DOJ get hit. Now, why this matters? The DOJ is the organization that's going to go after these groups when it's time to bring justice to the people that they find and identify and arrest, or put under extradition if that's what they do. So what are your thoughts here, guys, on Killing Ransomware Group getting into the ATF's network and hitting a standalone machine? Obviously it's not that standalone if this group was able to get to it. What are your thoughts here, right? Because look, cyber criminals aren't sitting in the ATF's network. They have to get there through the internet. So how standalone is it if, we saw this with AI, right? When AI broke out and busted in and broke into Happy Face, the people who were testing it thought the internet wasn't connected, and it was.
Right.
So, what are we doing here?
So I don't think that they scanned the network. They scanned the internet and found like a computer name called ATF Field Device, San Francisco, and they're like, oh man, let's look into this one, But But going back to, it's one thing if you hit a city government, a county government, even a state government, but I think they're going to backtrack once they realize this is a DOJ thing, because you're like poking the bear. And like you said, I don't know if they want DOJ to put all their resources to go after them. I would, if I was Quillian, I would be like, hey, this was one of our, affiliates. Sorry about that. We've already removed the information, and let's leave us alone, please. But I don't think it's wise for them to go after the ATF because of the link with the DOJ and it's federal.
So, I mean, they were able to stop either one of two things happened, right? We don't know methods and things like that. So either this system was, my guess would be that this system wasn't segmented well, because if it was, they wouldn't have gotten in. My guess is that once they deployed the ransomware, they had the proper tools in place to isolate that machine, because it detected the nefarious activity going on, right? It detected the ransomware, it detected the decryption, right? Or encryption, and then it walled it off. That more than likely is what I believe happened here.
So do we know how they got in?
No, but and that's an interesting thing too, because I think if you guys remember from the story Andre brought to the table on Monday, right? We talked about those session tokens, those things. It's probably one of those things where a device got compromised outside of the environment and then was brought in, and then these guys were able to kind of like sniff around after that, right? And then they found this system with that. Like, look, if a cyber criminal group finds a system in a law enforcement organization with active investigation information, we've already seen 3 or 4 instances where what they do with that information, they don't hold on to it, right? They start contacting everybody on both sides, and we've seen them contact the police and tell them we're going to out you. We've seen them contact informants for the police and tell them we're going to out you to the criminals. And then they've also called the criminals and said, like, hey, we know you have this investigation going on, or blah blah blah, and things happen that way too, right? And people get paid that way, right? Hey, I have information that's going to help you. Criminals are willing to pay for that, right? So we see this information being used 17 different ways for these guys. It's not necessarily the ransomware groups that are making money, but they know who to turn to sell this information to on the dark web. And those guys are the experts at the extortion piece. So again, it's a network of people. They trade this information, and they know what criminals to go after and sell this information to.
Yeah. So the reason I was asking though is, so I'm got a little sidebar here going. It looks like Killen will get in with phishing emails, stolen VPN credentials,
right?
Internet exposed systems, or compromised remote access tools. And my imagination starts running wild when I read that list. Was this standalone machine? Was there a developer that had VPN access to it, or had, like Screen Connect access to it or something like that? Did the developer, because of that, did they have something open to the internet or whatever? But yeah, I mean, they've really got to get to the bottom of that, because you can't have an attack and then just not know how they got in, because then that's like putting on a blindfold and, trying to catch things that are getting thrown at you. You're not going to be able to stop it the next time if they can't figure out how and why this happened. So that's going to be a very, very important that they do. And they can't just, cross their fingers and hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. So I think when they are saying the word standalone, it's not necessarily where like it's air gap type of thing. It's just more of like, hey, this machine didn't talk to all of these other important tools that we use day to day.
Right. We don't have enough information. We are never going to know.
Yeah, we'll never know. Yeah.
We're never going to know if this was segmented or if it was isolation by some kind of EDR system or something like that. Go ahead, Randy.
Well, no, it just makes me think it was some kind of project, you know, some kind of thing they were working on or whatever, you know. So I don't know. I tend to think something more like that than it was segregated by design on purpose. But
before we wrap up, I want to pose one question to you guys that I think about, and I've actually heard from people when this kind of stuff happens, right? I'm not saying this is the right way that people should look at things, but I know from conversations that this is kind of how some people think out there, right? And right or wrong, people think like our government, they have, for all intents and purposes, unlimited funds at their disposal, right? Nobody's going to say our government's poor, right? It's just maybe allocated, you know, in a way that people don't like. But I think when people hear like the ATF, the FBI, these places getting hacked, it begs the question of like, okay, if they can't do it, then what the heck am I doing? Right? Why am I spending money on this stuff? If they're spending it, that most people's view is that our government is spending like a ridiculous amount of money on cybersecurity. That is not the case. There are certain divisions, you know, CIA, DOD, that spend more on this stuff than say like the Department of Interior or HHS, right? So the cybersecurity spend is not equal across the board. I would even say that the ATF probably doesn't do it at the level as some other three-letter organizations in our government, right? So, but what would you say to a business owner, guys, that comes to you or somebody, you know, in leadership who's making IT decisions and they're like, yeah, we're not going to secure things. We're not going to do things that way because the government can't even do it. So we're not going to spend, you know, above and beyond what we think on cybersecurity or securing AI because of that.
Never use the government as your excuse not to do something, because they have all kinds of exemptions and they're not going to like go, oh, we're not going to fine you because we screwed up over here on this side. It just doesn't work that way. So that'd be my first thing to say. My second thing to say is to 99% of the business owners out there, even a business of 500 people, you have an advantage. You don't have the complexity and the size that the federal government has. So you have an easier chance of making sure everything's covered. Cybersecurity 1.1, identify. You can identify everything, identify the people, identify the data. You got a better chance of doing that. So I wouldn't say that. And then also, like, along the same lines, the smaller size, we're talking even 5,000 employees. The smaller size is a smaller complexity, and you've got a better opportunity to ingest all of the telemetry of something like this. You know, if this was a nation state, pretty hard to stop a nation state attack, but at the same time, you can still have full telemetry, so you can know how they got in and you can know how to recover. Telemetry is just when we see everything. We want to see everything. We want to know when the bad guys are trying to get in over here, when so-and-so in your office opened an email, when so-and-so allowed this access or whatever. That's called telemetry. Being able to see it all together in one place really matters in situations like this. So I guess my response would just be like, I would start off with what I said. Don't do anything just because the government didn't do it. You need to do what's right for your business, and it's the right thing to do, and do your due diligence to do the best that you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Andre?
The government should not be your role model.
No. But I hear it. So I figured I'd ask the question and bring it up because people do, go, hey, the FBI can't do it. So, it feels like a losing battle, which,
It is.
yeah, you're right. So it can be, but there's also a right way and wrong way to do it. And I think, we do have to, before we wrap up, we do have to give the ATF kudos because, they were able to prevent it and get it down to one system, which is what we talk about on this show all the time, is reducing that blast radius as best you can. Because stuff will happen, right? And as we saw, like different situations this week, different, reasons these three companies or these three topics that we talked about had a problem, right? One was two were hackers, right? And one was a vendor who, decided to do things a little differently that caused data loss. But the main lesson here underneath all of those is you won't control when this trouble arrives at your business. The only control that you have is how far it goes once it does, right? And that's what we talk about when we say reducing that blast radius, right? I think about Boston Scientific and those nonprofits that found out the hard way when this stuff happened. The ATF kind of knew and said, like, hey, let's get some things in place where if stuff does happen, we can control where that goes. So control what a disaster can reach before it reaches everything. That's the idea here. So for Randy, Andre, and I, we appreciate everyone tuning in today. Head over to securitysquawk.com if you want to see all of our past episodes over the last 5 years. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm streaming over on X now, so we appreciate everybody over there who's watching this live stream. If any of this helped you, please subscribe, leave us a review, leave us a comment, let us know so other people find this show, other business owners, other people who are just interested in where all of this is cybersecurity and AI are going. So thanks to Randy and Andre. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks, right? We won't be on next week, but we gave you 2 episodes this week to make up for that. So we'll see everybody next time. Stay safe out there.
Spend now or spend later?
Bye, everybody.